everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hinman's chairman is under the weather, so I'm going to be sitting in for him. So bear with me. We got to go through the rules. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. First off, the fire exit is located on your left of this room. In the event of a fire, you will be notified by an announcement. If notified, please move calm and orderly fashion to the exits. Do not use the elevator. Use either the front stairs or the back stairs in the lobby. The meeting are recorded by Michelle for the purposes of a record and minutes. So please identify yourself each time that you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in order as they appear on the agenda. Extra should be over by the doorway. After the cases have been called, the applicant will or representative shall come to the podium, identify himself or herself, state their address, and then present their case. The zoning board members will then have the opportunity to question the applicant. Then the case will be open to the public input. Anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium and identify themselves along with their address and direct the questions to the board. Once the public input has been completed, the applicant or representative will be given the opportunity to respond. Then I will close the public hearing and continue to the next case. After all the cases have been heard, the board will take a short recess and then return to deliberate each case in order of the applicants that are still here. No further input is allowed at this point, but you may stay and listen to the deliberation. If you wish to leave, you can find out the results by calling the planning or zoning department tomorrow, or possibly going later and watching it on television. I think I'm set. First case on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First case on the agenda is case number ZB 1702-1. Upon the matter of request by James Hastings for an area variance to replace an attached garage with a 26-foot by 35-foot attached garage exceeding maximum square footage and garage frontage allowable on premises 2593 Norton Street in an R1 residential district.
Hello, good evening, James Hastings. Basically what I want to do,
Supposed to swear him in.
you can.
You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Basically what I want to do is tear down this old garage, which I gave you all pictures of, and I want to replace it with this new garage. And in the process of doing that, I want to make it 11 feet longer and as wide as the existing barn. So that would increase the square footage by 500 feet, and it would increase the length by 11 feet. It only increases my lot coverage by 0.8% for a total of 5.3% of my lot would be covered by garages. And I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. It's kind of simple.
I'm looking at the application. I did drive by and noticed the older barn. The older barn is going to stay. The garage that's attached to the older barn is what you're replacing.
Yes.
And according to the application, the variance, the extra variance we need is with a width is allowed 35 feet. Or no, is allowed 30 feet. You're requesting 35 feet. You're asking for an extra 5 feet in width.
Yes.
And then the actual square footage is allowed 900. You're asking for 910. So you're looking for 10 extra square feet, right?
Yes. I guess it also comes in effect how you consider the barn.
Right.
Basically, I want to take what's existing and increase it by 500 square feet. even though I guess what's existing isn't totally in compliance to today's codes.
Is the barn going to be used for living quarters or for storage, or what's the purpose of the barn?
Storage. And by the barn, you meant the garage that I'm going to put up, not the
No,
barn itself.
The barn itself,
The barn is also storage.
okay. And the house, you'll be living in that house?
I will be eventually. It's going to be where I'm going to retire to. I got a huge house now and all the kids are gone, so I'm looking for a smaller house. Well, I have a smaller house, but I just want to get it ready for when I do make the move.
Is that rental property right now, the house?
Yes,
Are the trailers there all years? The trucks, there's like 3 job trailers?
not all of them are all the time. Some of them are work trailers. But yes, they're mine, but they're there because we're working on it. Once I get things done, hopefully it'll be inside the
Inside?
garage, yes, or not there at all.
Is there any plans to divide this property up at all? I noticed the frontage looks to be 403 feet wide and 151 deep.
You know, I really haven't thought that far ahead. You know, maybe something will make me think of it in the future, but right now I have no plans for that.
I mean, based on the size of the property, the size of the barns aren't that bad. And it looks like it's an old farmhouse and an old farm property.
And it does border the school, which is probably around 40 acres also. So it kind of does look like a farm a little bit.
Okay, so you're the owner of the house,
Yes,
the property. I asked that because one time there was somebody here getting a variance that didn't even own it. It was a problem, so, yes, okay, we've got that.
I've had it since October.
And you're leaving the barn up and just gonna take the garage down and rebuild that?
Yes, yeah. In the process, also fix that side of the barn that was deteriorated because the garage wasn't built properly.
Right, right.
Surprisingly, that barn is in really nice shape.
Good, good.
Yeah.
God, the heck.
The old square nails, and the wooden pegs in it. It's actually a pretty cool barn.
Is
There's
there,
a-
I'm sorry, is there a pass-through between the barn and the garage? Are they-
No,
They're not
I
going to be?
wasn't planning on putting one in either.
Okay, they're just very close together.
They're actually touching each other.
Okay.
Is there any color of the barn's going to stay, or the color of the new garage going to be white, or is it going to match the barn, or are you going to match
No, I'm going to pretty much be the color of the picture.
the color of the picture of the?
Yeah, that tan beige color.
Is that other piece off the back of the barn going to stay too?
Yes, I'm going to fix that and rebuild it eventually.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you real quick, you don't have any negative feedback from neighbors or anything?
I
Or,
really haven't met any neighbors yet, and I am pretty far away from all my neighbors. The ones across Norton Street are the closest ones, and,
could say the people behind you can't be objecting because there's nobody there.
right, exactly.
About acres and acres, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's nice there.
Yours is the first one in, right? Or the second one?
The very first one next to the school.
Yeah, yeah. That's an ideal situation then.
It is. It's almost like being out in the country and not being out in the country.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I do want to say, if you find that it's too big, if I had to go down to 30 feet and everything else was okay, I guess I could live with that. I would like to stay at 35 feet, but if you felt that granting me 2 variances was too much, going down to 30 feet, it actually puts the garage less than 900, and it does put me in compliance to that 30-foot of frontage. But I was hoping for the 35.
You know how long the garage has been there? With the barn?
I'm guessing in the mid-70s, late 60s.
Are you going to be using it for rental storage?
No, for my own personal stuff. camper, boat, stuff like that, stuff that I just want to kind of get out of sight.
Any other questions from the board?
Counselor, if the buildings are two separate buildings, but they're real close together, it's still considered attached? Or,
I was wondering that too when the applicant made that comment. I mean, if they're structurally being constructed where you're attaching the structures together, even though there's no point of access shared between the two, I think we can interpret it as attached. If there's a physical gap between them, I think it would be a separate structure.
okay.
But it sounds like what the applicant's proposing is an attached structure. There's just a wall between them, sort of bifurcating the space.
Well, there's actually not going to be a wall between them because the one wall is going to be
Right,
a wall.
it's a party wall, yeah.
And when I was talking to the gentleman in the permit office, he said as long as I put, as long as I put screws attaching them together, it's considered one building.
Okay, I thought you were going to have separate walls there, so, okay.
So there's going to be one common wall between
Yes.
the structures? Okay, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, and we'll ask for some public input. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step up. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this application? Please step up. Is there anybody that just wants to ask a question about the application? Please step up.
Good evening. Dave Gavin, 25 Densmore Road. And I am one of the neighbors. I have no objection to the garage expansion. The reason I came is the construction going on at the barn was leading me to believe that it might be residential in nature, since all the old windows were taken out and residential type windows are put in. A new dormer was put on the back. I was kind of concerned that they're going to try to build another house there, but the applicant has said under oath that it's just for storage, so I guess I have no problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
My response to that was, there was,
One more
I'm sorry,
gentleman.
sir. There was no windows in the old barn. There was just sheets of corrugated metal, broken window, I wouldn't even call them windows, broken frames. So I went to the scrap bin at Lowe's, found stuff that fit as close as possible, and put them in there so the rain and the pigeons stayed out. Sorry.
Okay. One more gentleman has a question. Comment?
Hi, Sam Falzone, 5 Catalina Drive, Irondequoit. My concern is that I see what's going on there with the garages. I think we're in the direction of having a storage for heavy equipment. That's what it looks like to me, between the barn and the addition to the garage and the size that it is. This is R1, and I believe that the gentleman just recently purchased that property. Is he going to live on premise there, or is he going to just operate it? He doesn't have to rent it out, but I'm just kind of curious, because he does have some large equipment there now. And I don't know if it belongs to him or somebody else, but this is in fact, we got to take in consideration that this is R1, not R1, R2, but R1.
Very good.
Okay,
He
and-
is saying he's renting the,
Pardon?
I guess he's using the house right now for a rental? He is not living there, but he has plans to
I
move
don't
in.
think so. I can't debate, I don't know anything about that,
Okay, well, he
okay?
had-
But I know visually what I see, and that's not consistent the way we operate in the town, okay? Just a consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, with that, when do you plan on moving into the structure?
It would be a while. Years. 7, 8, 10 years.
So it's going to be a rental for, and the storage will be used for your business?
No, for my stuff. I have, just pack rat. Got a lot of stuff, and
Is heavy equipment part of the stuff that you've got?
I don't know where he
Neighbors-
came up with the heavy equipment.
Are we-
Right now, there's 3 trailers there. We had a Bobcat there, but that's when we were doing some grading and stuff. So there's really no heavy equipment. We don't even have the big trailer there anymore. You know, once we were done with the Bobcat, we took the Bobcat out of there and the big trailer out of there, so I don't know where the big equipment came from. There is no big equipment there.
Okay, so to clarify, the house would be used as a rental
Yes.
property. Because I thought no one was living in the house. It was in such poor condition.
Somebody is living in one, and I'm about to start rehabbing the downstairs apartment to make that better.
Okay. And the barn storage would be just to store your stuff, no boat, car, equipment?
I have like vanities that I'm gonna store in there and kitchen cabinets and stuff like that,
So the nature of your business, you're a construction worker, or
pretty much, yes.
okay, what's the nature of your business?
Construction.
Construction, okay.
So we're
So,
not gonna be storing any heavy equipment there, and again, I don't know where that came from. There was a Bobcat there for about a week doing grading, but that's long gone.
are you gonna be utilizing the for business? I mean, is this gonna be personal storage, or is this gonna be business storage and business equipment?
Well, I guess it all depends if you call a table saw and a chop saw personal or business. It's gonna be stuff like that. You know, it's,
I guess I'm not as concerned with those kind of items.
you know, I'm not gonna keep a Bobcat there.
Or a
I'm not
backhoe
going-
or a
No,
bulldozer.
none of that's, no,
Or heavy trucks or anything like that.
no.
Could you talk to the board a little bit about the need to use this particular property as storage as opposed to any alternative that you might have? Why is the request being made at this particular property over some other location?
Well, for one, it's about a third of a mile away from my house. I live in the same street, and it's really convenient. And the house I'm in now is huge, and I do plan on downsizing to the smaller one. It's gonna be a while, but I do plan on going there, and I guess I'm just setting myself up for the future. You know, it came up for sale, and I liked it.
If we were to make it, I guess I have to ask, excuse me. Never mind, we'll come back to it. Okay.
In the letter you sent, you stated, I would provide an out-of-sight place to store my tractor, boat, and camper. Is it a large tractor? Is it a lawn tractor, or
Be a yard tractor,
what?
like a lawnmower type tractor.
Anybody else care to make any comments or questions? Okay, then we're done with that case, and we'll call the next case.
Alrighty, thank you for
We're
your
going
time.
to close the public hearing on this one. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1702-2. Upon the matter of request by Ed Amen for area variances to construct a single-family dwelling with less than required front and rear setbacks, and to construct a 48-foot by 20-foot by 12-foot high detached garage exceeding maximum square footage and garage frontage, and to erect an 8-foot high wood solid rear yard fence abutting Seabreeze Expressway exceeding maximum height allowable, and a 6-foot high solid vinyl side yard fence exceeding maximum height allowable, and a 6-foot high solid vinyl front yard fence exceeding maximum height and linear footage allowable, and non-conforming fence type on premises 828 Hellendale Road, tax ID number 092.16-1-10.1, in an R1 residential district.
I'm Rod Prosser of Lakeside Engineering. I'm the engineer for the project. I'm here with Ed Amen. The first and really important thing is this is a non-conforming, very difficult lot.
Okay, before we start, guys, right hand.
Yep.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Lot's very narrow,
Sir, I didn't get your name.
Rod Prosser.
Rod,
I'm with Ed Amon,
PR.
OSSER.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it basically requires that variances be approved in order to construct a reasonable size and configuration home on the property. What we've done is we've laid it out actually in a way that I think would improve the property and the neighborhood area, in that we do back right up to the 590 expressway. It is very busy, it is very noisy, and both the house and the garage that are proposed are going to be wide, and they're going to abut the expressway and basically block it. You know, I think it'll really calm the noise and really better the aesthetics of the area for the neighboring citizens and residents up on Hellendale Road. The garage proposal is oversized in that Ed does have antique cars that he wishes to store in there, and we could have turned it around the other way and made it conforming, but we again felt that in the configuration it will be nice amenity-wise and will be far superior to the expressway view. Again, help block noise and improve the aesthetics and just be, better, be an improvement to the area and betterment for the neighbors up on Hellendale Road. Again, because of the lot size and the location of the expressway, we're asking for basically an overheight fence, board fence, with actually soundproofing on it that would, deter some of the noise that's going to be right behind the home. Asking to be able to put in a pool, because there's really no backyard, it gets into the need for fence variances. Again, for the vinyl fence that's being proposed, being of a 6-foot height and being on the side and the front in order to enclose the pool that we'd like to put on the property.
I guess I'm going to need a little help from Michelle or Carrie in reference to typically we know which is the front yard and which is the backyard, and in this particular property, it's all tucked behind.
Right, so on the front, this is what we would call a flag lot, in that the connection to the road that it fronts, or that its address is located, there's a small section, and then it's followed by a long linear path back to the larger part of the lot. And so if you're looking at, and I'll try to get you to the, if we're looking, if you look at the survey instrument map that's included in the packet that is in there, that's been sort of labeled and marked up with the proposed configuration. And we're looking at it sort of so the writing is upside down, so that you see Hellendale would be at the bottom.
Right.
And the flag is sort of facing to the left. So that line that it runs parallel to Hellendale at the bottom is actually the front yard. So that's what makes it challenging, is the
So that's
front.
kind of the
front yard.
west lot line.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. What is the west linear lot line is actually the front yard.
So the yellow vinyl fence, or what's highlighted in yellow that goes around the pool,
Correct.
Is
Is
the only-
technically in the front yard.
and that's the only fence that is in the front yard. The rest of it, from the corner kind of at the pool all the way to the driveway, there is no fence. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
Correct. It
There
looks like
are-
they're just trying to enclose a proposed pool.
Right, now there's
And then the 8-foot high fence along the perimeter of the back, of the rear
the
yard.
expressway fence.
Correct.
Right. In our drawings, or in your, in the drawing, there's dotted with trees. Are those bushes that are gonna be put in, or
There are
arborvitae?
some arborvitae there, and it's kind of wooded, very low quality, but, whatever is in there that can be saved would be. But it's pretty well, it's kind of screened. If you've gone back there, you'd see that the house is kind of nestled in kind of like a little wooded area. The garage will be exposed.
Okay.
So you're gonna have arborvitae between your house and the house in front of you?
Yes.
That's the property.
There's existing arborvitae. It won't, cover the entire house, but it'll help, yes. And we'll put more in if necessary.
Couple questions. We got a set of drawings with two different houses on it, one with the garage and a deck, one without. Which one are you gonna go by footprint? I mean, the basic house is the same footprint.
The house is, the last,
The
you got it.
enhanced plan.
The enhanced plan?
That's
is
the one we're
correct.
going with, the enhanced plan, yes. That's
The
gonna be,
large-
that's
the-
gonna be area.
Is the garage gonna be a garage that's
No.
attached, or?
No, there will be no
Is that gonna be
attached
the theater
garage.
room, or
That's
something
gonna be
you
a
mentioned?
theater room, yes, sir.
Yeah.
No deck, because the pool's gonna be back there?
So the plans I have show that there is an attached garage.
It's actually the man cave, the
Theater.
amusement theater room, excuse
Is it gonna have garage doors on it?
me. No.
Are you gonna purchase the property? Because I see there's a different property owner.
It's pending this meeting, sir.
Okay, got you.
So your total garage space is
No, the house is right here,
is gonna be the 6-car garage.
facing this way,
That's what's requested.
front yard.
In the event we approve some of it, is that gonna be acceptable? I mean, that is a large
What
garage.
do I do with my cars, sir?
Well,
Do I have
they
to sell
they have
them?
storage units all around the town of Arundequite. I have one stored in one of the storage units. That's an alternative. There is an alternative, and that's my question. In the event that you can't have this full garage, will it be acceptable?
Sir, with respect, I don't want to turn it towards the side street because I am entitled to a 900 square foot garage, I believe. That 48 by 12 is wrong. It's supposed to be 45 by 20, correct? That's supposed to be 45 by 20, which would allow 900 square feet. And when I spoke to Donna, her and I had mentioned that, we could turn it towards the neighbors to the side. But I'm doing this for two things. I'm doing this so I have a place to put my muscle antique cars, as well as block that ugly view of the highway. So actually, the one neighbor from the Sisters of Mercy, the nun, she was excited about it. The neighbor next door, he was excited about it. The gentleman that lived on the side street, he was okay with it, because right now I'm looking at his garage, which is not so attractive. I really would like to build the garage because it would help me save money for my family, and it would also give me a blocking of that expressway, because that's very unattractive.
So the drawings on the garage are wrong. It's not 48 feet.
Should be
45
45,
by
should be
20.
45 by 20,
So
sir.
somebody changed it, part of it in the letter to 48.
Well, what that would be,
We'll accept 45.
yeah,
45?
it's supposed to be 900 square feet, sir. So we would be going down, 60 square feet? I guess that's making it smaller.
Well, then that brings up a good question. Does he need a variance based if he does bring it back down to 45 by 20 and makes it 900 square feet? Does he actually need a variance for the size of the garage?
He doesn't need a variance for overall size. He still needs one based on the configuration. So the overall width of the garage exceeds the code requirement. So he still needs a variance for the frontage because the code requirement on that,
It's 30.
I think, is 30, and he's looking for 45 now based on the amendment.
But the square footage at 900 is allowable.
Is allowed.
So the fact that he's got it in a different angle, even though it looks nice and he is correct, it will look good that way. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I did speak with the, I stopped and none of the neighbors except for the Sister of Mercy, I guess, was there, and she did indicate, I forgot to record her name, but she did indicate that it's better than having an alternative, that he wants to live there and build a house there. So
She was okay with it.
she was okay with it. None of his other neighbors around surrounding, when I was there, were home.
Any other questions? Okay, is there any, thank you, gentlemen. Is there anybody that would?
Excuse me, just for a point of clarification, the submitted drawings reference the 48-foot width.
Yep.
And the narrative references the 45. Just for clarity for the board, is it 45 or 48?
Should be 900 square feet.
We'll go to 45. The drawing did say 48, yes, but...
Or we just want to make sure it's okay if,
It's okay to...
as long as we know,
45,
the board knows which one they're acting on.
And
45?
when we talk about it or approve it or disapprove it, we'll mention that it's 45.
Okay, great.
All right, now, thank you, gentlemen. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of this applicant?
I think you're making a wise decision, okay?
Well, go ahead, stand in front of the microphone and talk to me. Tell me who you are.
I'm Ed Amon Senior. I built a lot of houses in the town of Rondequoit. I done all Camp Eastman. I think if you allow this here, it's going to improve the neighborhood quite much.
Thank you.
Sir, what was your address?
What's my address?
Yes, sir, for the record.
My address, I don't live in the town of Rondequoit.
That's okay.
It's all right.
183 Shortcliff, Greece, off of Ladder Road.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would speak in favor of the applicant? Is there anybody that would speak against the proposed application? Is there anybody that would just like to ask a question about the application? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing on this applicant and move on to the next case. Thank you. The next case is a tabled case. Do you need to call it, or do you need me to mention that we untable it first?
I would ask you for a motion from the board to remove it from the table.
Yep, I need a motion to take this off the table. Case number ZB 1701-3 on the Culver Road project, 24225 Culver Road and 4250 Culver Road. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I'll second it.
Okay, I guess what we'll do is have the applicant talk to us.
It's an update, yep.
Give us an update on what went on this past month, and then we'll have some input.
Great. Thank you, board members. Thomas Palumbo, Stantec Consulting. And so when we last left the meeting, we were talking about the building height, and there were some concerns that were raised by the Point Pleasant Fire District, the chief of the fire district. So since that time, we've had a chance to meet with him. We've developed this fire exhibit that we've submitted to you folks on the 27th. Also with that was a variance summary and the notes that we prepared, Stantec prepared, relative to that meeting. Since then, the fire chief has sent an email to the town. I don't know if you have a copy of that. I would suspect you probably do.
Yes, I do.
So as we stated, there were some issues that he had that he wanted to get some better understanding of, and we needed to discuss with him. So we developed this exhibit. We sat down, we went through, we looked at the access. You'll see that plan shows a radius of 150 feet. That's kind of the code requirement for the overlapping areas that the fire, you want to have access to from the truck. Identified all the existing hydrants. We talked about circulation in the parking lot. And it turns out probably the most concern he had was access to that the east side, really the kind of the angle inside the building. So sitting down with him at that meeting, we started sketching up an access way, a plan for access in that area. Since then, we've kind of developed it a little bit more. It's a really minor site plan change. Basically brings an extra wide,
Might you have copies of that for the board?
Sure.
Yep.
Should have one.
I thought I had one and I can't seem to find it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Take it back. I knew I had it. I've got one. Good, thank you. Yep.
So, as we said before, there's the access points in the patio homes and again in the parking lot, kind of like the radius around to serve that, and naturally along Culver Road would be an access way for them as well. The concern was really getting into this corner, so we were able to put through like an extra wide sidewalk, and it'll have structural landscape stone on the sides to give it some extra width. Really, he needs to have a minimum of 16 feet. We show this very linear right now, but when we come to final design, it'll probably be a little bit softer. It'll have soft rounded edges, things like that. But we're able to get this into a point where he can then reach all this side of the inside with the ladder truck if he needed to. So the second thought was making sure we had enough room to run the ladder truck through the parking lot. And what you see is a truck turning movement using the 42-foot ladder truck that they would have. That's very similar to the one that the Culver Ridge District has coming in. So we submitted that. Chief Champion's seen this. He got it on the 27th, and then his response came to us in an email, I think, in the following week. So he thinks that it's a big assistance to his operations. And, we thought the meeting was productive and will help with future development and open communications between the fire district and Providence. So we'll continue to work with him, as we do the final design for final signatures and stuff like that. He'll have another opportunity to look at that, and we'll work with him on that as well to make sure the landscaping isn't in the way. We did move some landscaping down along this the south side, and we kind of configured some of the sidewalks, so it gives him better access around the building if he's going by foot. The only other, so that's, I thought we had some good progress on that issue of fire access. The only other aspect that we just wanted to kind of respond to a little bit was on the parking. There was a question about parking usage. So we've done some, some analysis of that, and the county has done a study in 2007, and they look at what's actually being used is about 0.5 cars to 0.6 cars per unit. We're proposing 0.75.
Where did they come up with this?
Well, what they did is they did a study where they sent out surveys to a bunch of different users for a whole bunch of different uses. And of that, they got 22 responses from senior living facilities.
Who is they?
County DOT.
Okay.
So that being the case, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of variables that affect the parking, like, the average age of the folks, the affluence, what other transportation things are available. So what we did is we did a count on St. Salome's itself, the existing apartments, because it's going to be what we're proposing to build. just more of them. And we did it for a week. We did it at varying times, and morning and evening. So I've got the results of that for you. I'd like to submit it.
I'm just curious, I'm looking at the plans that were and the plans that are now in reference to, how did you pick up 7 spaces? You originally had this parking lot with 60 spaces, now you have it with 67 spaces? 67, you had 60 here.
Oh, that's an old.
That's the one we got with this, right? But you just now made a pathway there that's gonna take up a couple. That's the one you submitted with the first plans that I had. It's your plans. I mean, that's what we were going on last month.
That is, that's an older.
Okay, December 8th.
Excuse me, Mr. LaPerry?
Yep.
The submission you should be looking at is dated December 15th, 2016.
Okay.
And it would be CS 100.
All right,
And that one is labeled as 67 parking spaces as well. So it might have been an earlier iteration or something that might have been presented to one of the prior boards before it was, it came to this board. So apologies for the confusion. There's been an evolution.
all right. I know Mr. Polino had brought up the, last month's meeting, the idea of not having enough parking spots. I was there on Saturday, and I counted about 25 cars in the parking lot, and with approximately 30 units, and that doesn't entail
have-
anybody visiting or anything like that.
Right now, we've got 39 units in that building,
You got 39 units in the old building?
in the existing building.
Right, and then
Right, so-
you're gonna go with 40 more units.
That's right, so if you
That's
count.
almost 80 units.
If you take a look at this parking counts that we gave you,
Mhm.
the counts ranged, they counted anywhere from 28 on the high side to 20 cars on the low side. So that ranges from 0.7 cars per unit to about 0.5 cars per unit. And we're proposing 0.75. And that, we did that, we had them take the measurements at different, you'll see different times in the morning and different times in the afternoon, so that we could see if there was a high time or something like that in the day. And catch the visitors, catch the fact that, they're gonna have folks coming in,
That's my-
folks come in and
that's
stuff.
my
So-
concern.
So
You're gonna
that's why we counted it. So when we did, so at 0.7, at 0.75, we're at 0.75, we're providing 60, we've got 67 cars, 67 parking spaces for the total of 79 units.
What day of the week was this done?
If you look down the side, it's the date, it's a Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The whole week, yeah.
Read the whole thing.
And I take it by our town code, you only need 2 handicap spots. And you're talking elderly, there's going to be a lot more with handicap stickers, probably.
There's actually a federal guideline that's enforced by New York State. So that's what we're obligated,
Right.
that's
Thank you.
correct. And actually, yeah, I believe that's the case.
And I'll just clarify, if you're looking at this fire exhibit, we just show these 2 handicap spaces here. There's also a bunch along here as well. They're just not
Not
labeled
labeled.
on this drawing.
Did you take any examples at night, overnight, when everybody's home?
No, we figured like
After 5 PM, after 6 PM?
there's a 6, 7, 8, and 9 count. So it's
Okay, all right. any later than that?
We didn't do anything later than 9. no.
Okay. I just, again, I have a large concern of a number of spots. I also have a large concern of getting that fire truck around that parking lot. If in the event someone was to be parked not all the way tight into their spot and that truck had to come in, it just seems awful tight to me. I guess I'm trying to, with most buildings today, don't you, isn't there a code requirement to be able to get fire trucks up close to the building, next to the building?
We're there. We gotta be within 150 feet.
That's what the standard code is.
Okay.
So that's kind of why we show, that they need to, so really, the circle is if he's just in the parking lot, not if he's up into the main entryway. We discussing that with the fire district chief, he's like, well, it would be really handy for him, plus the EMS guys could use it. If they want to get up close to the door, it's less gurney work they need to
But
do.
that's only 10 foot wide, right?
Well, it's actually it's 10 feet wide of concrete, and then we're going to do like structural, either landscape stone with a structural base underneath it, or maybe grasscrete, something that will hold the weight of the vehicle.
That's the next question. How thick's that cement going to be? That sidewalk won't take the weight.
Oh, sure will.
2-inch, 3-inch sidewalk? Or?
Oh, no, it'll be at least 5-inch sidewalk with 6 inches stone underneath it, be reinforced.
My question isn't the distance, but I see 3 hydrants, maybe 4. Is there going to be another hydrant within the, look at the north circle?
This one,
The next one?
yeah.
Is there going to be a hydrant closer to the buildings?
There won't be. There'll be a fire department connection at the building now.
At the building?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't show that on the,
Hydrants need to be like within 400 or 500 feet, depending on where you are. So the hydrants can be spaced out further apart. They want to get the truck within 150 feet of the fight area.
okay. My concern is for the safety. If you're looking at elderly people, look at moving slower. So a hydrant closer to the building may benefit everyone. Safety is not mandatory, but the hydrant in the north, adjacent to Wacona, how far is that from the building?
Well, it's probably a couple hundred feet, 200-300 feet maybe. We could, if the fire district felt they needed to put one in there, we could put one in there off of Wacona.
Okay. That's closer in.
Yeah.
Where's the proposed fire department hookup on the outside of the building?
That's correct.
Where is
It's
that?
on Culver Road. There's a hydrant right here.
Yep.
It would be right like in this area. So they can hook on here and they can pump into the building. if
Just
they
the
want.
one?
There's one fire department connection. It's all based on the way they design the internal
I'm assuming the building is,
sprinkler system. This
gonna say
building's fully
sprinkler
sprinklered, automatic sprinkler, yeah. Yeah. And, alarm system, so it's not.
I used to be the chief of the fire department, Point Pleasant. And when I was chief of the fire department, I lost many nights' sleep worrying about German Village at the bottom of Point Pleasant Road Hill and Seneca and down that way, because there was very little access to these places. It's been improved a great deal since, but it makes me so sensitive to getting these people out, especially if they're going to be seniors and, well, who knows what else, because we don't live in Florida. We get these big snow drifts. We get very cold weather. I'm sure you know all this. And I think this is a good reason to lose sleep, worrying about what if that thing gets going. Now, you say, well, materials on these days, they don't burn like that. Well, that's what they thought at the town garage, too. The did a pretty good job on that one. Luckily, there wasn't any lives lost on that case. But I have the same concerns as Mike does about the overall number of people, the amount of room. To me, Culver Road is, if everything is called properly, in order and, it might work. I'm thinking this could be workable, but I'm thinking about what if something goes wrong? There's really no margin for error here. And I see the circles drawn and so forth. And I used to drive a fire truck, so I know it's not easy to maneuver, especially when you have obstacles in the way.
Right. The program that we use for turning templates is normally not, it's going to give us a little extra room in there, just because it is an approximation of the turning movements of the truck. So it does try to it gives us the overhang of the bumpers front and back, because they do have a pretty big overhang on them. And, quite honestly, we've seen them turn tighter than what we show here, particularly anything that's articulated, but.
So you're comfortable with it?
Yeah, I am.
And the chief seems to be okay.
Well, and I read this letter from the chief, and although you've addressed some of his concerns, and I guess it's the way I read the letter, this letter is an overwhelming endorsement. At the very end, he says, should you have any questions or concern, do not hesitate to call. He said, I feel that the meeting was very productive and will help with the future development and open communication between the fire district and Providence. But I don't see where he's saying he gave it his blessing. He did say that, you've talked about certain concerns, but
So we
I don't
talked
see
about a
this
lot,
letter
we
as
talked
an
about a lot of
endorsement.
things. We talked about like staffing, the staffing at the site, the hours. We talked about some grades and things like that. But what we came out of that meeting with were these changes that we made. I think the part that says it is the changes in the landscaping and parking area, along with better access to the east side of the building, is a huge assistance to our operations. It's
Thanks. If I may, I was actually at the meeting as well as just a neutral party, and to make sure that I could report back to this board as well, if that's okay. I think that the site changes that were made were a direct response to the fire chief's concerns about physical access to the building and ensuring the truck could get as close as needed, and that the alterations to the landscaping with respect to engineered landscape, so that even if it didn't look like pavement, it could support the weight of the truck like pavement would be able to, without having to worry about it sinking the minute that it's, I know there's a technical term for when the truck is stationary and having to be not moved at that point. So I left the meeting thinking that the proposed changes were meeting the fire chief's, or addressing his concerns about the access to the building. And there were a lot of other issues that were brought up just in terms of service and response, and his preferences for future alarm system and how it's organized or structured so that the next project wouldn't mirror some of the things in the current. And so they're identifying operationally a lot of different things, not just the physical design of the building and the site. So that might be why it was more generic in the response.
And just a follow-up question for staff. I understand the applicant's working with the fire district, but could you just remind us what the town fire marshal's take on this project was in compliance with the applicable codes?
And I'd have to look back in the file. I believe there's a memo from the fire marshal in here indicating that the proposed design, and this is obviously even predating the changes that were more recently made, met all of the codes as far as New York State fire prevention and building. I mean, he's looking at it from a fire prevention standpoint, and that the proposed design met or exceeded all of New York State code requirements for fire prevention. The fire marshal's stance on this was that it's fully sprinklered, fully alarmed, fire-rated construction, and so that he didn't have a concern. And that I can verbatim say from the memo that fire apparatus access is compliant with the code, fire sprinkler system is required in both R2 occupancy and the A assembly occupancy, fire alarm system monitored is required, and that fire hydrants are provided by a public water authority and located within 600 feet from all parts of the ground floor exterior fire sprinkled buildings. That's the 600-foot distance is when the building is sprinklered. It's less if the building is not sprinklered.
So could we go over some of these variances based on your application for 4250, so we know what they are exactly?
Sure. Did you see this variance summary that I assembled?
This one?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just did that just so we could have a good.
So you could help me. So starting from, we'll do 4250 first. The side yard, which is the Culver Road side, which would be technically the west side of the building. It requires a 25-foot or building height of 37 feet. Requested variance is 15 feet. The deviation is going to be 22 feet.
That's correct.
That's correct, right?
Yes.
Did the fire captain say anything about that? Because he did mention the last time he was here that he was concerned with if he had to put a ladder truck up on Culver Road, that he would be blocking Culver Road with that ladder truck. If he were to bring a ladder truck in, that the truck, or even ladders, I think, no, a ladder truck, I think I wish he was here.
He also said the ladder couldn't reach the.
Right, it has to be
So
set
what
up
we-
so far.
Yeah, what we show here is there's a line, a dashed line around the outside of the building.
Yep.
That's the base of a ground ladder. So the dash line is to the window, and the solid line is to the eave of the door. So the ground ladder needs to be, for every 4 feet vertical, it needs to be a foot out,
Okay,
and that's how we've determined that.
so that's a ground ladder.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he did say he would, if he were here, if he was going to do something with the building, just like any of the other buildings on Culver, he'd pull up on Culver.
right.
You got an emergency, you're going to probably stop traffic or move it around you.
So the question is if he pulls up on Culver and with a ladder truck and opens it up, puts the downriggers down, he's now blocking Culver Road. That's what he had mentioned. That's what he had mentioned to us before.
Right. I mean,
No
if
other
he's-
apparatus
if he's
could get
gonna be
around
putting
him.
the ladder up, the building's going to be really involved, so.
Well,
No one's going to be driving by it, I don't think.
no, I'm not saying driving by it, but other emergency trucks getting around to the backside to the parking lot.
Well, Culver is pretty, I don't have the width of the pavement right at hand, but it's awfully wide. The truck is 16 feet to the outriggers. And he didn't really express a concern with the width of Culver. I'm not sure if they would actually put one outrigger out on the sidewalk and one outrigger on the pavement, or if they would try to get the truck centered in the road when they lift the ladder. So I can't really respond to that.
All right, let's continue now. The east line, which is the east side of the building facing the parking lot, you have a 25-foot building, same type of height, and the code requests 24 feet, and the deviation is 13 feet.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the east line. The rear yard is the south line. It's required 50 feet. You're looking for 14 feet, so you're looking for a 36-foot variance. That's the south side, and that's actually just the point of the building. The majority of the building would be further distance. So you're just talking the southeast corner of the building, right?
Right, just where this angle of the building comes
Right,
in.
that's going to be the tightest where the variance is. Parking, it's required that there's 80 spaces. You've got .75 shared, so you're basically looking, if we're doing that correctly, is that 67? I'm not doing the math.
So it's 67.
Is that .75 of 80?
Actually, it's,
I don't know.
sorry.
It's not, .6 would be .75. 60.
Actually, the 67 is .85. It's a little higher than what we're asking for. What we did is, so the parking on the property itself, it's going to have no parking on the property because all the parking is on this parcel.
Right.
So what we looked at is when we said .75 shared, we meant shared between these two buildings.
Okay. So again, all right, so you have
So we're
80 spaces or 79 units technically, right?
Yep.
79 units, and you're looking for 67.
67, correct.
Again, that's the one that still I question personally. Lot area is 3,000 square foot per unit, I take it, and we're at 2.75 acres, and we're looking for 1,250 square foot per unit at 1.14 acres. So there's a 1,750 unit deviation.
That's correct.
So the units basically are smaller than what the code requires by more than half.
Acreage would be less than the code requires based on the number of units. So
Gotcha.
the acreage of the site is less than.
So based on those acreage.
Correct.
We're making the units 1,750 feet too big, according to the.
No, just as a point of clarification, the way this is, the way this is worded, it's insufficient lot, based on the current code requirement, they don't have the amount of acreage or square footage, parcel square footage for the unit count.
Right.
So it's insufficient lot area. What we could do is calculate the lot area that would be required based on number of units.
And to staff's point, this provision is a little rigid based on how it's being applied here. Since this is a multi-story building, that provision's really contemplating a one-story, footprint. And since here we're going up, you've got to factor that into your variance too. I understand there's a height variance before you, but even though there's a number of units here that exceed what might be envisioned based on lot coverage, they are stacked on top of each other.
How many units are going to be on the third floor?
Off the top of my head, I think there's 13 on the floor.
13 per floor?
Yeah. Well, they're not, the first floor is going to have a little different because you've got community space stuff on that. So these variances are very similar to what we did with St. Salome Apartments. The first project, we had the same kind of variances going through.
Help me out. First floor is going to have how many units?
So, sorry,
First floor is going to
let
have
me
how many?
respond, change that. It's 14 on the third floor.
14 on the
14,
third?
14, and 12.
I'm sorry, say that again?
14, 14, and 12.
Okay. Bottom floor is going to have 12?
Yeah.
And then the last variance is the building height, which is, the required by code is 30 feet. You're requesting 37, and that is at the mean, or the median point, not the total peak, right?
That's correct.
And it's a 7-foot variance. Do you have off the top of your head how tall St. Salome's is at at the mean right now.
I don't. I mean, I could venture a guess, but I'd rather not.
You had to make an educated guess. About 25 feet, I would bet,
Probably, yeah,
right?
probably in the 25-foot range.
Okay.
That's, yeah, that would be about that, or about that.
Okay.
25 to 27, something like that.
All right. Now, we have a similar issue at the one across the street, right? 4225. And that, the front yard, which is the one facing Drew Berry, which is the south lot line, but they consider that the front yard. You have a 50-foot requirement, and you're asking for 15, which is a 35-foot variance.
That's correct.
That, again, I have an issue with a fire truck in there being able to set up. Although it's only a two-story building, so it's not as much of a concern, I guess, but. And then the number two, the side yard, is Culver Road, which is required for 25 foot. You're looking at 15 and an 11-foot variance. That should be a 10-foot variance.
So the code requirement is actually 25 feet or the building height, which is here 26.
Okay.
And the request is for 15 feet, so it's an 11-foot variance.
okay.
It's the greater of 25 or the actual building height.
Very good. And then Birchwood, which is the street behind, which is a very tight street, 20, again, the 25 or 26-foot requirement, it's 12 foot, and that's a 14-foot setback, deviation.
Yeah, and I'd like to.
It seems like it's going to be tight back there.
Well, I'd like to point out, that's where the existing building is. That's,
Mhm.
it's, as you see, the existing building is where this building will be located.
Right.
In that back corner.
But
So
that's
there-
a church. Nobody's living on the top floor.
True,
Okay.
true. But, you know, I mean,
that's
as
a
you look at,
concern.
as you look at that,
My concern is that I know what you're trying to do, and but I have a concern with, and again, safety.
but as you
Because
go
once
north,
it's
as you go
up-
north on Culver Road, those buildings are no setback. They're right on
I
the
understand.
right of way.
I
And if you
understand.
look forward to doing more of a village, you know, design character, which is kind of like what we're trying to lead through the comprehensive plan, it asks to pull the buildings tighter to the road, so that you can get
I
the parking in the
understand.
back, and so you
I-
can create that building line.
It's just my worry is after you've put it up and something happens, everybody's going to be looking, saying, why did we approve it? Where did we go wrong? And I want to make sure that we're looking at people's safety first and foremost.
Well, I think that's why, you know, we hear from the fire marshal, and we go back and talk to the fire chief and really try to make sure everybody's set with that.
Rear yard, again, is 50-foot. Rear yard in this particular building is
Is the north side.
the north point.
Yeah, so it's that little
That
corner.
little point there's two little points that stick out, but they're 10 feet, and your deviation is 40 feet. And then parking spaces, again, if I'm looking at this correctly, 2 spaces. We're looking for 23 spaces, right?
Yep.
And so, and at a .75 rating per unit,
That's correct.
right? And so, and we had talked last time about possibly taking some of those parking spots initially and changing it so that you add some spaces?
We had indicated that that we would like the variance approved as it's requested, but there are areas for us to expand. We could add parking, if we found the need that we needed to have more parking, we could add parking on both 4225 and 4250.
Well, I guess we get back to 4250 because I'd love to know where. But 4225, 4225, we kind of talked about the center medium or some snow storage areas or wherever,
Yeah, we could put parking both there's room here along the road
right?
and in the median.
How many spaces are you looking for?
Well,
Because the variance summary says 23 and my plan says 24.
we were looking for the .75 and that comes to 23. We're able to we're fitting 24 on there. If we needed to put if we wanted to convert something to another handicap set, you're going to lose a space. So by code, we're able to get 24 in there. If operationally we wanted to get another handicap in there, it'd come down to 23. Another set of handicap houses.
Did the fire marshal or the chief consider pulling a truck into that parking lot at all?
Sorry. Oh, is it, I apologize. They did, and actually, the benefit at 4225 is that there's going to be a grade change associated with this development. Right now, into the parking lot of the church, it's a very steep, and concern would be that right now, as the existing condition, trucks would bottom out entering the property. Because of the proposed development, the grade change is going to be altered, and so it'll be much more there'll be much less of a slope, and so the apparatus will have a much easier time getting onto the property than they would right now.
I'm not, and they'll be able to swing around in that parking lot?
They indicated they looked at the turning radius in the interior of the parking lot, is my understanding, and certainly the applicant can address if I'm...
No, you're good. We're 24-foot wide roads, drive lanes through there, and good radiuses, so he just wanted to be sure he wasn't going to go down and come up, when he goes in the driveway, because right now that's what you do. You drop down in through there, and literally you're going to go from Birchwood, and it'll just have a gentle grade up to the building.
Okay, so we're going on to the last one, which is lot area, and again, similar to the other one. It's the size of the units based on the acreage. And your overall deviation on that is 1,500 square feet. And it's the variance of the unit. Units are going to be 1,475, is that correct?
No, what that is the square footage of the lot required per unit.
Okay.
So it really kind of bases the size of how big what the parcel's got to be at 3,000 square feet of lot area per unit.
So what the code provision is saying is it's saying based on the number of units proposed at that address, they need to have a plot of land that's approximately 2.07 acres.
Right.
And what they actually have is approximately 1.016 acres. So the deviation is between the code requirement for the roughly 2 acres versus the 1 acre that they have based on the number of units. So that's what that metric is going to. It's the overall size of the property that they need for the number of units that they're proposing.
All right. Is there any questions from the board?
Just one on the fire hydrants for that property, 4225. They're not on this drawing that I can tell. I see the one that's way up Culver Road. This is going to be sprinklered too?
Yeah, it'll be fully sprinkled. There's another, we didn't tell you the truth, we didn't highlight them on this plan because we were really looking at 4250. But there's another one here on Dewberry as well, I believe. there's water main that goes down Dewberry and then comes up Birchwood, so.
And I believe that might have been mentioned or addressed in the fire marshal's code compliance in the memo to this board, or to the planning board, pardon me.
I'm curious about, was any discussion or questions about water supply? Because I know these water mains on Culver are generally pretty good, but I don't know if it actually came up in discussion.
We did, excuse me. As part of the site plan application, we indicated what the fire flows are out there. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but they were submitted as part of the site plan application. And they were strong. The hydrant on Culver's, that main is a strong main.
Because there were other, streets in the area, neighborhoods that have hydrants in them or on them, which can be laid from also. But if they're looped or if they're not, big enough, you can run out of water. Especially if you're supplying aerial trucks and that type of thing. It doesn't take long to run out of water.
Well,
but I don't know if that even was discussed.
it was, when we discussed it, the chief said he would probably be hooking up to Culver Road. First thing he'd probably do is hook up to Culver Road, just because it's the stronger main of all the side streets.
Well, they may be interconnected too. I don't know. I really don't know. But my last question has to do with taxes. Now, when you have churches, they're tax exempt.
Right.
Is this property going to be tax exempt or is it taxable?
It is tax exempt. It's going to have a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the town. So we'll be making a payment rather than paying taxes. We'll be making a payment.
Like a one-time deal?
No, it's a yearly thing.
That's an annual agreement that the owner of the property would enter into with the town, and that's something that the town board would have to authorize, that agreement.
Has that been brought up yet? Or-
It has been, it's been addressed, and that was discussed as part of the town board's deliberation and consideration of the application when it was before them for the rezoning. And I know that the applicant would enter into, they would enter an agreement, and town board would have to authorize the agreement before it could be carried out by the town.
Will that apply to both parcels?
It'll apply to both parcels. So the project is being considered in its entirety, and the pilot agreement, it would address both of them, and it would be structured similarly, although there may be some modifications that the town board could implement, but it would be structured similarly to the existing St. Salome's pilot agreement that's in place and was put in place prior to its approval 8, 9, or 10 years ago.
Does the school district benefit at all, or is it, they're not?
You know what, you could look at the agreement. I'm not sure that this board is, if it's, certainly if anybody's interested, we could find the agreement, but.
Yeah, the pilot, as Carrie mentioned, that's typically more in the purview of the town board, but the school district is typically a stakeholder, and they're a consideration as part of that analysis before pilots are agreed to and negotiated. They typically have a seat at the table.
I had mentioned this in the last meeting, in the event that, again, a third story is not approved because of the height. Is that going to stop your project? Or is it going to just redesign it?
Well, it probably won't be feasible. Really, we need to see how many, the unit, so the only way to really increase our unit count would be to get a bigger footprint down on the ground.
This is Providence is considered a nonprofit, right?
Yeah, but, so the project is going through, is in a funding cycle through Housing Community Renewal. It has to show, its feasibility from a financial standpoint and its sustainability from a financial standpoint, and that includes the maintenance of the buildings through the years.
So the property, for lack of better words, it's subsidized by state or subsidized by state and federal?
It's state State and federal, yeah.
So,
So Providence is the development manager, basically. They'll manage the property, and there's also, I'm going to say that there's also equity investors that are involved in it.
but it is,
So
it is state subsidized.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, eliminating that third floor on that one building obviously ratchets income back, but then again, does it squash your project?
Well, it's a question, do we get enough units to really make the development work, balance? If,
I just got one last question.
Sure.
Were you gonna have maintenance guys from the last meeting I was remembering?
Yeah.
Just 12-hour shifts, three guys? Or?
Yeah, they'll be like 12-hour shift. They'll be, kind of opposing shifts, so there's always someone kind of on call.
Two guys for each, not for both buildings, I should say.
Right.
What about the cottages, or those, somebody else do those?
No, it's all one parcel. It's all one property. They're all managed together. The manager, the on-site manager will be a full-time manager now. Right now, she's part-time.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, just comment, in the chief's memo, where he talks about the things, the key items that were discussed at your meeting.
Yep.
He ends that paragraph by saying, concerns about the fact that I think it's, the building is 3 stories, it adds a burden to the fire district, which you're trying to work out. The need for change for response plans, that kind of falls into most development projects. But then the last thing he says, and purchase of additional equipment. What equipment's he talking about, or do they really?
The one item he mentioned was bailout gear. So like if the firemen are in the 3rd floor, they need some way to bail out, to
Okay.
get out the window.
He's not talking about heavy equipment like
That's like
bigger
like,
truck.
I think it's
or-
like rope and safety gear.
Pardon?
I think it's like ropes and safety gear.
In the event we have to table this again so that we can talk to the chief, to get a more reassuring response.
I was just going to say, I think we have to, if that's what the board wants to do, it's well within its purview, but I would just caution you that we should really be relying on the fire marshal's report and analysis of the development under the applicable codes. Not to discount or dismiss what the fire chief indicated, but the fire marshal did look at this, and we've got a pretty thorough memo on whether or not the project complies with applicable state codes. So I just want to make sure that we're not losing sight of that.
I guess, that being said, it's still, I'm not comfortable with the overall size and the scope of the project based on the questions that are unanswered, or I don't think are completely answered, by them not being here and not us being able to ask them. All right, that being said, I guess we move on. Any other questions? And then the public hearing has been closed.
Public hearing was closed at the last meeting.
I was not aware of that. I apologize for the people that I might have spoke to and mentioned coming in this past week. I know they have some concerns, and I kind of also echo their concerns. But I guess we'll, at this point,
Mr. Chairman, is it possible to open up the public hearing again or for the additional comments, or?
and then I'm going to refer to council.
So the public hearing was closed at the last meeting based on a motion, a second, and a vote. If the board,
Tabled it. We didn't.
I think
right,
we
but
tabled
the
it,
public hearing was closed before the application was actually tabled. So at the conclusion of the public remarks, we reviewed the tape, and at the conclusion of the public remarks, there was a motion to close the hearing, and then it was tabled to review some of these issues with the fire district chief and his concerns, but the public hearing was closed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I feel uncomfortable closing a meeting and not hearing the concerns of the citizens. So even though if it's a procedure thing, how do we correct this procedure so we can hear the concerns of both the chief and the citizens?
I referring to council, if I ask to reopen the public hearing, am I overstepping my bounds? Or if there's no objection by the applicant, and also, obviously, the chief's not here, but if we can request to have him come back at the next meeting, but to let the residents talk in a public hearing, I'm okay if I have to make a motion to open it again. You got to tell me if
It wasn't advertised as a public hearing. That would be my one concern
Right,
as staff.
So two things. One, it's listed on the agenda as a tabled item. It wasn't advertised. So while there are some folks here, if folks knew it was a public hearing, other folks may have come or may not have come. It is within the board's purview to entertain a motion to reopen the public hearing. But like I said, there was some discussion at the last meeting. It was closed, and the scope was somewhat limited as to what was going to be considered at this meeting. So with that in mind, and the fact that it wasn't advertised, I'd recommend that it not be reopened at this meeting.
All right, the next question would be, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but if we were to table this and then request that we have reopen the public, reopen it to the public hearing for next meeting, and then we can advertise it, and then we can give the neighbors a chance to voice their final concerns. And we can also ask the chief, and for that matter, the fire marshal will be here to talk to us and either put our mind at ease at the project, at the overall look of the project, or we have to make a decision whether we're going to accept it the way it is. Can I do that?
If you want to have it re-advertised and appear at a subsequent meeting, you could do that. Again, I want to be sure that we're recognizing that the scope was limited for the reason why we tabled it last month. So to reopen a public hearing and address all of the issues that could have been addressed when the public hearing was scheduled, we should just make sure that the scope is somewhat limited.
Okay. I don't know that, safety was definitely part of the scope, but the overall parking situation was also part of the scope of the last meeting, and the height was part of the last meeting. So there were three, other than just the fire chiefs at the very end, when that came up, that was the one that really stopped us in our tracks. So, but there were other concerns. My concern was parking. Mr. Paulino's concern was parking. And getting vehicles in and around these buildings safely, with the fire district. So it wasn't just the issue about the fire chief, although that was part of it. So again, I guess I'm asking it up to council, can I do it or can't I do it?
You can do it. It just needs to be done by a motion of the board. I'd recommend the applicants seem willing to work with the board too. You mentioned upon consent of the applicant, you may want to ask them for their consent as well, and then we can re-advertise it and allow folks, to speak regarding new information they have relative to these specific issues that you enunciated.
That being said, do you have a problem if we table it and reopen it to a public hearing next month? You have it,
Yes, if the scope is, if it's just open and we're going right back to square one, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. If we're going to limit the scope, I'm happy to talk about the issues that we've addressed,
Well, part of the
with
issues-
parking and the fire marshal, the fire chief's concerns, that's what we were asked to go address. We've redesigned the project once. I can't redesign it every time, every month, go back and redesign this project.
Well, if you remember last month, I asked you about the third floor, and I asked you about the safety of the third floor and the overall concerns of the height. And and Mr. Paulino asked about the character of the height of the building, the changing the character of the neighborhood. If you recall, and I do, those things.
The height of the building was the concern, it was the concern expressed by the chief.
No, Mr. Paulino.
Mr. Polino addressed that issue as well, more with the parking than he did with the height. The height was the issue at the end of the meeting, really raised by the chief. The height from the ground to the sill is only 25 feet. It's not 37 feet. That's not where they have to get their ladders to. We've addressed that with the chief. We gave him the wider area so his trucks have stable bases. I can't bring the building down. Is the chief going to tell you that it's harder to fight a fire on 3 stories as opposed to 2? Absolutely, that's true. It's harder. He didn't say he couldn't do it.
Again, I would like to reopen it. I mean, the other thing is if we just table it.
You asked me if I would consent. I'm not consenting. If you want to reopen it, then you have your own prerogatives.
Well, do I have my own prerogatives?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would suggest you limit the scope to the particular issues that you announced. One, safety.
Okay.
Regarding fire suppression and accessibility to the units, and second, parking. And I think those are the 2 issues that you mentioned.
My concern was the third story.
Yeah, and I think the height goes to the safety and accessibility to emergency responders.
All right. Is this something I do now as far as tabling it, or do we do it after our recess?
You could do it now.
Okay.
Can
Is
I
there any
ask
other
one
questions?
But you may want to entertain.
If we were to vote on it, not table it, without a full board, and it was turned down, is any recourse for anybody? Because we're short 2 members.
No, you have a quorum,
Okay.
so you're in a position to vote.
I don't know that it's, I guess I don't know which way it's going to go, but I don't know if that, if we should, I think we should wait.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my feeling is that I think this is an interesting project, and I think overall it's good for the town. My concern is twofold. Number 1, for the safety of the residents living there, and number 2, for the concerns of the residents and the neighbors that are there. So I think as a public servant, it's better to listen to the concerns of the neighbors so that we can address it, and maybe it's just simply something easy. And also it's better for the safety of the residents. I think our obligation is, in the worst case scenario, have we address all options. And for procedural tap dance, I don't think that that it benefits anyone to okay or move forward on procedure if we're losing out on these other concerns. That'll come back maybe to haunt us later. So I'd rather have all concerns on the table so that we can see what the concerns are and address them as a responsible member of the board, and also as a responsible citizen.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Is this gone to planning yet, by any chance, or is it based on what we do?
This is the last board, so the project is received, the rezoning was approved by the town board, then it went to planning board for site plan review, where it received site plan, preliminary and final site plan review contingent upon this board's approval or review.
Okay, I want to get my 2 cents in here.
Please.
Very quickly.
No, take your time.
But, okay. My problem is, and I think you mentioned the word comfortable. I don't think if we table this, I don't think we're asking the developer to start all over again. I don't think we're asking you to just throw everything out the window and start from scratch. That would be kind of ludicrous, and really I don't think that's what we're after. I think what we're after, what's concerning us, is the basic safety questions, even though they've been addressed somewhat. I also think there might be more from residents, and I think I'd like to see the fire marshal in here and the chief. And then we put it all together and make a really solid presentation. You can use all the same numbers you've got. I don't think we have to change anything. But to convince the people and us that this is the best possible plan. And then I think it'll probably go through. But we can't stand back and look at something that is going to definitely change the character of that neighborhood and say, gee, we shouldn't have done that. I mean, I don't want to be in that position, and I'm not an expert in anything here where I can say this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. I want to hear from the others again. I think the public deserves to hear from the others. So, Mike, I'm on the same page with you.
Thank you. And I know the developer at this point, you're not a fan, and I get it. But I do have concerns, and again, like Russ said, I'm not trying to stop the project. That's not what I want to do. I think the development looks nice, it's pretty, it's handsome, it's going to be a nice spot. I just want to make sure it's safe and that it fits the character of the neighborhood and that you're going to have enough parking. So, that being said, any other questions? I'm going to make a motion to table this.
Second.
And to clarify, is there, as part of that motion, a request to re-advertise the public hearing? And again, I would suggest, since the applicant didn't consent to a public hearing generically addressing all of the issues, that it be limited to safety issues relating to the height of the structure and accessibility and parking.
Okay, let's walk through it. We're going to, first, one of the concerns is the height, and this goes to the public hearing. The safety of the fire, with fire concerns, fire safety concerns, and parking concerns. And if we can open a public hearing at the next meeting. Also, is there any way we can request that the chief is here?
I'll communicate that. The chief had hoped to be here tonight and then had a conflict and wasn't able to attend. And I will tell you that I indicated that because he had provided a response to the plan that would be okay. So I'll let him know that about the next meeting, and hopefully he can arrange his schedule so that he doesn't have a conflict.
Okay, so for the public, they understand that those are the three considerations that we want to chat about, talk about. And unfortunately, it's going to be next month. But it will be advertised for people, so everybody knows. And then also the fire marshal, if we can request.
We can make that request. He can be here, assuming that doesn't have a personal time off.
Right. Okay, thank you. That being said, I think we're done with.
So you need a second on that motion, and then you'll need to put it to a vote.
Do I have a second on the?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had that you made the motion and Mr. Evans seconded it
That was for the tabling.
to table it with the
And
concerns.
And then the modifications to speak only on the height, the fire safety, and the parking concerns.
And advertise as a public hearing and request the fire marshal and chief present.
Yes, thank you.
And now you just need to ask for aye, nay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 1, 5. And 2 absent. Thank you.
And then if I may, just provide an update to you on the last item that's on the tabled,
Yep.
under the agenda. The application for Densmore continues to be before the planning board for the purposes of seeker. We expect based on new information that's been provided to the planning board, that the revised seeker documentation will be reviewed at the planning board workshop. And based on that review of information, the planning board, at its full meeting, if it determines that it has sufficient information, may move forward with making its determination of significance, and depending on the outcome of that, will dictate when that application comes back before this board. If seeker were to be finalized in the February meeting with the planning board, then this board could take the item up off the table at its March meeting.
Okay, very good.
Just as a point of update. And we'll be, once we can provide updated information once we get to that point.
Okay, I will, I'm going to suggest that we adjourn for, till quarter of. Okay, does that give us enough time? 5-6 minutes? Yeah, we'll have a break and then we'll come back. To the finale here. we've got Norton Street, which I think that gentleman left. So we have 828 Hallandale, ZB 1702-2. And this is a type 2 action under seeker. And it is, okay, does anyone care to make a motion on Hallandale Road one? No, we've got, we have a few different variances in this one. Do we have to do them separately, or can we do it all with one motion?
You could do them with one motion if the board's so inclined. You may just want to have them read out,
Okay.
just so everyone knows what they are.
All right. Does anybody like to make a motion? See?
I do have a question, though. We're going to change it to 45 feet?
Yes, we are going to do that. Yep. All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion for 828 Hallandale Road that we approve this motion. And I'm going to, I don't believe it'll change in the character of the neighborhood. I don't believe that it'll have any substantial adverse effect to the environment. It is a self-created issue because this gentleman wants to have a nice new house and a new garage. It is a substantial. It is not a in my opinion, it's not a substantial variance. He is cutting the garage back to that fits into the code, other than the way the garage is set up, where the front is wider. But technically, he does, at 900 feet, he does fall into the square footage allowed for the garage. The fencing, because of where the lot is, it's a unique lot. It is borders the highway, the 590 Expressway, and it is tucked behind two existing homes. So again, it is a very unique lot, and again, I do not feel that it will hurt the character of the neighborhood. So I'm going to, first off, we're just to read through these. The front variance is the front setback. Minimum requirement is 30. We're requesting 25. The variance is only 5 feet. The rear setback, minimum is 30. We're requesting 14.5 feet, so that variance is 15. The garage is now going to be 45 feet wide and 20 feet wide, or deep, I should say, 45 feet wide and 20 feet deep, which will have a square footage that fits at 900 square feet. However, the width of the garage, based on its location in the yard and based on the aesthetic appeal, it's actually going to look nice there. The rear fence yard, 6 foot high, is the max. This is the fence that is on the east side, which is along the expressway. He's going with an 8 foot high fence. He's, I believe, up on a slope, so and again, he's right next to the highway. He's looking for a 2 foot variance on a 6 foot high fence along that back lot line, what I call the back lot line. And again, that's a 2 foot variance. The pool fence that goes around the pool is a 6 foot high. We're adding, the variance is going to be 23 linear feet. It's allowed, actually, I'm not sure based on this.
It was the type.
The type of fence, solid?
Open style.
Okay, solid. Oh, it's 55 feet. It's 55 linear feet. You're allowed 32 linear feet. 55 linear feet is the solid fence. The variance is 23 linear feet. Again, this is tucked behind homes along the highway, so it is not going to affect adversely anybody. The side yard fence is 4 feet high, allowed. and we're going for 6 foot, and that's a 2-foot variance, and that's the, technically going to be the front of the house, but it is, again, behind 2 other people's homes. So, based on all that,
And Mr. Chairman, did you get the height of the proposed pool fence too in the front yard? 3.5 feet is allowed by code.
yes, 3.5 feet's allowed by code, we're going with 6 foot. And again, it says it's a front yard, but it really isn't, if you look at the layout of the lot.
And the only other one that I didn't hear was the garage frontage, where the frontage of the garage can only be, the code requires it to be 30
30.
feet.
And we're gonna make it 45 feet wide, the frontage. So that's a 15-foot variance. But again, the overall, he did drop that back from 48 feet wide to 45 foot wide. The overall square footage falls within the code. So, based on all that,
I got a second.
do I hear a second? Does Mr. Hammond second?
No, you did. I was going to ask a question.
You question?
The pool, is that considered the side yard? Does we have to do anything on that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Michelle, Carrie?
Would you mind repeating, we were looking at the
The pool, is it considered the side yard where it is? Do we have to do anything on the pool?
The pool is an accessory structure. It's located, the start of the pool is actually behind the front building line. And so by virtue of that, I think we should be okay. I can double check the code really quickly just to make sure that a pool can't be located, an accessory structure can't be located in the front yard, but it can be located in the side. It can't be forward of the front foundation. And in this drawing, it doesn't look to be.
Okay. All right, so I made the motion. Mr. Thomas seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's 5 in favor, and none opposed, 2 absent, right? Okay. And let's see here. All right, fill that one out then.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yep, have a good night. Okay, on the matter of Norton Street, 2593 Norton Street, case ZB 1702-1. Do I have anybody making a motion on this one, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this variance.
Oh, by the way, this is a type 2 action also.
I still want to approve it. For the following findings, okay? First of all, this will not affect a change in the character of the neighborhood, because we're talking about a garage attached to a barn, which there already is. We're just going to upgrade it, put a new one up. As far as alternatives not requiring a variance, I don't know what the code says as far as maximum square footage. Is it 900?
It is 900, correct.
Okay, now he said he'd be okay with 900, but and I'm just as soon go along with his request for the bigger one because of the type of usage he plans for it, and also the fact that it's kind of in the country, even though it's not in the country. I don't think it would affect anything. So I would go with the larger garage. Also, the substantiality of the request is not excessive. There would be no effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the area. And is it self-created? Partially, because he could do nothing and be okay, except that that old garage is really getting deteriorated. It wasn't actually built correctly in the first place, so he'll be better off having a new attachment to that barn. And that's the motion.
Second? I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Before you do, though,
Yep.
can we put any stipulation on there, how, if that equipment's gonna be stored inside? It is a residential area, it might be a barn, but there's 3 job trailers there now, a couple trucks, there's some debris around the place, and he said he was gonna store it, and he already talked about a camper, a tractor. So, I mean, the garage is getting filled and he's got the barn. I'm just concerned of clutter, being out there. So, is there anything we can?
Sure.
Well, he's got to be compliant with the code with respect to storage of utility or construction-like vehicles. So the code stipulates what he's allowed to keep outdoors versus having to keep in cover. And so by virtue of the town staff enforcing our code, he would be really inclined to have to move things either indoors or behind or store them in the proper location on the property.
Okay, thank you.
A safeguard you might want to consider to address your concern is a condition indicating that the only things that are to be stored there should be owned either by the property owner or the folks that are residing in the dwelling on site.
Okay. Got that, Mike?
Condition, items stored items stored, owned only by owner or renter
Do we care?
of property.
Mr. Chairman, do we care if he's running his business out? Because I don't have a good feeling, is it going to be an active site where, or is that not enter into our consideration?
To staff's point, I mean, there's mechanisms in the code where if he's running a commercial operation out of there, there's enforcement mechanisms that are under the code that should safeguard against that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was concerned about the clutter because when he said 2-family, there could be 4 more vehicles parked there. They might not be in the garage. They're going to be,
Right.
And it's an open area too. It's not really hidden. So.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5 votes in favor, none opposed, 2 absent. Motion carries. And on that note, I don't think we have any other further business, do we? No?
There was no meeting minutes.
No. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Thanks for your patience, everybody. I appreciate it, and thanks for the help. Good evening.
Because of a
I'm
second.
going to vote no on it.
Second. Oh, did you want to stay?
There's a rule in Roberts that
Need a
says,
second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
there's a rule in Roberts that says
What's that?
if you don't approve it, hey,
You gotta stay. We'll leave Russ here.
I'm assuming you're all in favor to adjourn.
Yes, we're all in favor to adjourn, yes. Okay. Thank you.